We are going to launch the call for action that was just mentioned, or that was mentioned earlier on by Janusz Potocznik in his opening speech. But to know more about this and to get a feel for the work done by our artists, Mara and Teresa, during the course of the day, we're going to go live now to Mark Titterington, who is Senior Advisor in charge of Strategy and Partnerships at the Forum, who is stationed in the foyer with the Visualiser team. And we're going to just look at some of the work that was created during the course of the day. Mark, over to you.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Rose. And it's really been fantastic work from Mara today to capture just the rich diversity of the discussions and the debates and all the difference in voices we've had in the hall during the course of the last couple of panel sessions in particular. We started, of course, with the theme of fixing tomorrow today. This conference is taking place against that background of war and pandemic, but also climate change. And we heard from Executive Vice President Timmermans and others that we need to allow ourselves to be guided by facts and not fear, that the future will be green or we have no future, and that humans depend on nature. And perhaps that was something of the elephant in the room that Mara has captured so nicely here. We then got into how do we build a more resilient and sustainable food and agriculture system. And I think, if anything, we've heard today a lot about the need for radical and global collaborations, and that it's about systemic change that all of us participate in if we're going to make the shift. Technology and innovation, of course, is important, but I think we heard loud and clear that there's a shift here with the farmers, but also with the environmental interests as well, and that if those two things are aligned, perhaps we can work back from there and work out what's getting in the way. We talked about nature-based solutions, and one of our colleagues talked about the many different ways in agriculture that we have available to us to be able to do that, and that we will need them all. The alignment of incentives to accelerate that change came across loud and clear. And we heard from Microsoft about the important role of data and new technology and AI in bringing and unlocking new possibilities in agriculture that will enable us to take on some of these challenges. Of course, this afternoon we got into the session on soil, water and biodiversity. We've always been inclusive here at the Forum, so we were happy to welcome the voices from outside the room in. And then, of course, we got into the debate on the panel session. Clearly, the role of chemicals was there as we discussed. But we also heard about what's happening in Brazil, and we heard from some very practical examples from Andrea at the Nature Conservancy in upstate New York. As we went into the final session, we looked at how food, migration and climate change can come together. And a couple of things really struck me about that we need everybody around the table. If we've learned nothing from this afternoon and this morning, that was it. That there's a sense of urgency, but that we've got to make the supply chain in food and agriculture work for everyone. And then, as you say, we've talked about a call to action today. This is really about the Forum trying to take its next step and lay out those commitments that Jan has talked about in his opening speech of how we as a Forum can contribute to a more resilient and sustainable food and agriculture system. And we truly do want your voice to come across into this. And so we asked you during the breaks to come and contribute some of your ideas about how we do this. Now, Rose, you'll be on the clock, so you'll be telling me in a second in my ear that I need to get on with this. So I can only talk about 3 of the 7 commitments, but let's look at developing and scaling regenerative agriculture. What seemed to be important to some of you here was a lot around incentivization and making sure that the financial system is able to support growers in making that transition. And also that we do have the science, the technology, the innovation, the knowledge, the practices available, that we need to bring the science and the farmers and civil society and industry together if we're going to work on scaling this effectively. How do we account for and use natural capital? Really important commitment here. We see views here about combining quantitative and qualitative indicators and ensuring that those that are using natural capital are accounting for it and reporting on it transparently. And there's ideas here about how they should replenish and restore the natural resources that they've used. And then probably just finally, very quickly, we talked about how do we integrate sustainability into the supply chain, transparency, very important, but probably the one to end on is promoting the stronger voice of the farmer in those supply chains to ensure that sustainability is reflected all the way through. So a terrific day, lots of voices, lots of views, lots of opinions. That's what the forum's about. Mara and the team have done a fantastic job of capturing that in illustrative form. We thank you for your contributions from inside the hall. Do keep them coming. Rose, back to you.
Thank you very much indeed, Mark. And see that you're quite enthusiastic there, tapping into your artistic and creative side. That is Mark Titterington, Senior Advisor at the Forum, looking at the work from our illustrators, Mara and Teresa, and also the contributions from you, ladies and gentlemen. And I think this was a nice, novel idea, something that was the Forum introduced, the team introduced this for the first time. Everyone had their say if they wished to leave a comment. There were a number of questions there, and then an illustration to sort of, I suppose, reflect the course of the discussion today. So thank you very much indeed for that, Mark.